Hello everyone, this is Kanika Bali. I'm a chartered accountant and I'm here today to explain you the various provisions of IBC 2016. So, what is IBC? IBC is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Initially, this code was introduced in the year 2016. So, what was the need of introducing such a code or an act or a set of provisions? Actually, the provisions related to insolvency and bankruptcy before this code were scattered. They were in different acts like Companies Act, Surfarising Act. There was no single set of rules wherein such entities who want to go for insolvency and bankruptcy could resort to. So a need was felt by the government and the legislature to introduce a single code wherein specifically the cases of insolvency and bankruptcy would be handled. So that need resulted in the creation of this code. Now we will come to the basic terms of this code. They are insolvency and bankruptcy. What do you say? Do these words have the same meaning or they have different meanings? In common parlance, many people would say that insolvency and bankruptcy have the same meaning. But actually that's not true. Insolvency and bankruptcy both have different set of meanings. I will help you in understanding the difference between both of these words. Insolvency. Insolvency means a state wherein you are unable to pay off your liabilities. So, what are liabilities? Liabilities are your creditors, your debts, your dues. It could be any kind of sum which you have to pay, but you are unable to pay. When such a situation arises, it is said you are in an insolvent state, right? Now, coming to the word bankruptcy. What is bankruptcy? Does it have the same meaning as insolvency? No. Bankruptcy is has a different meaning. Once you know that you are insolvent and you are aware of the inability to pay off your liabilities, then you have to follow a separate legal process, and this process is called bankruptcy, right? So, insolvency is a state of being, whereas bankruptcy is a conclusion. An insolvent company, if it takes the correct steps, then it can become solvent again. But if a company is bankrupt, if it has started on the road of bankruptcy, then it can't be solvent again. And there is a separate legal process has to be followed for a bankruptcy company, and that complete process is defined in this code. Now, coming to the structure of this code. This code was initially introduced in 2016, and subsequently, four amendment acts have been introduced to make necessary amendments in this code. An amendment act was introduced in 2017, 18, 19, and 20. Every year, few amendments are introduced in this code through the respective amendment acts. As I will go over to explain different provisions to you, I will try to ensure that I cover the latest amendments also in those respective sections. So, what is IBC Code 2016? It is a bankruptcy law of India which seeks to consolidate the existing framework by creating a single law for insolvency and bankruptcy. Coming to the structure of IBC Code 2016. The IBC code has been divided into five parts. Okay, leaving part one, every part has seven chapters, and what is covered in these different parts? Part one contains basically the definitions, and it has the preliminary sections, and those sections pertain to sections 1 to 3. The second part of the code, it pertains to insolvency and resolution and liquidation of corporate persons. The sections falling under this part are sections 4 to 77. This is one of the most important part of the code. Part 3. It pertains to insolvency, resolution and liquidation of individuals and partnership firms. So we have two separate parts for insolvency resolution and liquidation for corporate companies, and there is a separate part for liquidation of individuals and partnership firms. The sections which fall under this in this part are section 78 to 187. Part 4 of the code relates to regulation of insolvency professional agencies and information utilities. The sections which fall under this part are section 188 to 223, and part 5 pertains to miscellaneous finance, accounts and audit. The sections which are under this part are section 224 to 255. So basically it's a small code, and we have in total 255 sections. Besides this, IBC code has the rules and regulations and the four amendment acts which I just told you about. Now we formally start the reading of the act or understanding the act. Initially, we will study the preliminary sections, and they are sections 1, 2, 3. They contain the extent of the act and applicability of the act and few definitions which would be very commonly used throughout our learning. This code applies to whole of India, and there is an exception to it. The part 3 of this code doesn't apply to state of J&K. I hope you remember what part 3 was. It pertains to insolvency resolution and liquidation of partnership firms and individuals. So part 3 of this code shall not apply to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Applicability of this code. This code is applied to which all companies or organizations. First, any company incorporated under the Companies Act 2013 or under any previous company law. So any private limited company, public limited company which is incorporated under the Companies Act 2013 or under the Companies Act 1956, on those companies this IBC code is applicable. Then any other company governed by any special act for the time being in force, like many companies are formed under a special act, like the banks or the insurance companies. They are formed under their respective acts. So if the company is governed by those acts, then also IBC will be applicable to them. Any LLP incorporated under the LLP Act 2008, so limited liability partnership firms also fall under the ambit of this code. Such other body incorporated under any law for the time being in force as the central government may by notification specify. So if the central government feels that it should be applicable to some specific set of body corporates, then it can issue necessary notification and cover such incorporated bodies also under the IBC code 2016. Hope I am clear to all of you till this slide. Also, it is applicable to partnership firms and individuals in relation to their insolvency, liquidation or bankruptcy. So this code is applicable only to that part of their structure which pertains to their insolvency, liquidation or bankruptcy. It doesn't relates to the taxation of these entities or the indirect taxation of these entities. It IBC code pertains to these all list of specific entities with relation to their insolvency, liquidation or bankruptcy. Some important definitions. What is a corporate person? Corporate person means a company, LLP or any other person incorporated with limited liability. Limited liability, you understand that your liability is limited to the extent of your investment, but shall not include a financial service provider. So what is a corporate person? Corporate person will cover our private limited companies, public limited companies, limited liability partnership, or any other person incorporated with a limited liability. Means the liability is limited. Liabilities are limited in which all cases? Wherein you have a capital. and you have invested in the capital of the company. But it shall not include financial service provider. So, for the purpose of this definition, banks are financial service providers, so they are not part of corporate person. What is a corporate debtor? A corporate debtor is a person who owes a debt to any person. Corporate debtor means a corporate person. I explained you what a corporate person is, and a corporate person who owes a debt to any person is called a corporate debtor. This term is repetitively used in the code, so I have given it a short name in the name of CD. I would be using these short names in the relevant sections. So I would request you to memorize them so that you get familiar with them. What is a creditor? Creditor is any person to whom a debt is owed. It includes a financial creditor, an operational creditor, secured and unsecured creditors. So, what is a financial creditor? A financial creditor is someone to whom a financial debt is owed. Like you have taken a loan from a bank, and it is a financial debt. What is an operational debt? A debt which is not financial means like you have bought some goods or services from a vendor and you owe money to them against those goods and services. So that won't be a financial debt, that would be a operational debt. Then the debt could be secured or unsecured. Okay, it covers all of them. Secured creditor. It means a creditor in whose favor security interest is created. Secured creditors are those to whom we have given any asset as a security, right? So, secured creditor means a creditor in whose favor security interest is created. Debt. Debt means a liability and includes financial debt and operational debt. Information utility. This word will come many times in the code. So, what is information utility? It means a person registered with the board as information utility under section 210 of this code. I will explain you the detailed meaning of this code in my further slide. What is property? Property includes money, goods, actionable claims, land, and every description of property created within or outside India. It includes every description of interest present, future, vested, or contingent arising out of or incidental to property. So, property is a very vast term. Okay, the code defines what all it includes. They have tried to cover everything under property which you could think of, but there could be many other say points also which fall under the ambit of property but not covered here. So, property basically money, goods, land, building, assets, and whether this could be within India or outside India. It includes your investments and any interest which is present, future, or contingent arising out or incidental to property. Okay, transaction. What is transaction? Transaction is like any dealing between the corporate debtor and the creditors that could be said as a transaction. It includes a written agreement or arrangement. It includes a written agreement or arrangement, but they are not saying that it excludes oral agreements or the transactions which are agreed for terms and conditions verbally. Okay, so transaction includes a written agreement or arrangement in writing for transfer of assets, goods or services from or to the CD. CD is corporate debtor. What is transfer? Transfer includes sale, purchase, mortgage, exchange, pledge, gift, loan, or any other form of transfer of right, title, possession, or lien. I hope this is self-explanatory. Workman has the same meaning as per the Industrial Disputes Act 1947, and person resident in India, it also has the same meaning as per the FEMA Act. As we will progress on the slides, I will explain you what is the meaning of workman and person resident in India. Now, What are the important definitions under Part 2 of Insolvency Resolution and Liquidation of Corporate Persons? This is one of the most important parts of the code. So one has to be very careful and have a clear understanding of the various provisions of this part. Now, it has preliminary sections and they are section 4 and 5. Applicability. It will apply to all matters related to insolvency and liquidation of corporate debtors where minimum amount of default is 1 lakh. Okay. So, when is this chapter applicable? This chapter is applicable for the matters relating to insolvency and liquidation of corporate debtors, means companies, partnership firms, and companies registered under any special act, right? What is the minimum amount of default? Initially, the code had introduced that the minimum amount of default for filing an insolvency or liquidation application should be 1 lakh rupees. But now, due to the pandemic COVID-19, the government has raised this limit to 1 crore rupees. Okay, so for the time being, this limit is 1 crore rupees. It is not 1 lakh. I hope once the pandemic is over, then this limit would be revised to a lower level. It could be brought back to 1 lakh rupees or to some other amount which the central government decides. Now, we will cover the definitions which fall under the preliminary sections. The various definitions are adjudicating authority. Adjudicating authority for the purpose of Chapter 1, like insolvency resolution and liquidation for corporate persons, is NCLT, which is constituted under Section 408 of the Companies Act 2013. So, NCLT means National Company Law Tribunal. Constitutional document means MOA, Memorandum of Association, then AOA, that stands for Article of Association, and incorporation document in cases of LLP. What is a corporate applicant? So, who can be a corporate applicant for the purposes of this chapter? It could be a corporate debtor. Corporate debtor is the person who is unable to pay off his debts. So even the person who is unable to pay off his debts, even that person can file application for insolvency, and he would be called a corporate applicant in such a case. Member or partner of corporate debtor who is authorized as per constitutional document to make an application for corporate insolvency resolution process. Any member or partner of CD who has an authorization as per the constitutional document. I explained you what the constitutional documents are. They are the MOA and AOA. And if that person is authorized as per MOA and AOA to make an application for CIRP, then that person will be called the corporate applicant. An individual in charge of managing operations and resources of CD. Any person who is in charge of managing operations and resources of CD, or any person who has control and supervision over the financial affairs of the corporate debtor. These people can apply for the CIRP of the corporate debtor. What is a financial creditor? Any person to whom a financial debt is owed. I told you what is a financial debt. Financial debt is like any monetary say debt which you have incurred, which is in terms of money. Any person to whom a financial debt is owed and includes a person to whom a such debt has been legally assigned or transferred to. For example, XYZ Limited took a loan from an individual, Mr. A. Now, Mr. A is no more, so his estate got transferred to his legal heir. So, the legal heir of Mr. A is the financial creditor of ABC Limited. Now, coming to operational creditor. What are operational creditors? Person to whom an operational debt is owed and includes any person to whom such a debt has been legally assigned or transferred. This is self-explanatory. Initiation date. The date on which a financial creditor, corporate applicant or operational creditor makes an application to the AA for initiating CIRP. Initiation date is the date on which any of these makes an application for starting of corporate insolvency resolution process for the CD. Okay, the application has to be made to the adjudicating authority. Adjudicating authority is NCLT. The application can be made by the corporate debtor, the financial creditor, or the operational creditor. The date on which this application is made is called the initiation date. What is insolvency commencement date? The date of admission of an application for initiating CIRP by the AA under section 7, 9 or section 10 is called the insolvency commencement date. For example, XYZ Limited creditor Mr. A has filed for initiating CIRP of XYZ Limited. Then the application by the adjudicating authority is approved after 10 days. So the date of approving the application would be the insolvency commencement date. What is a financial debt? Financial debt means a debt along with interest, if any. If the terms of agreement provides for payment of interest, then the interest component will also be part of the financial debt, which is disbursed against the consideration for the time value of money and includes money borrowed against the payment of interest, any amount raised by acceptance, any amount raised pursuant to any note purchase facility or the issue of bonds, notes, debentures, loan stock or any similar instrument, any liability in respect of any lease or hire purchase contract, receivables sold or discounted, any amount under any other transaction including any forward sale or purchase agreement having the commercial effect of a borrowing. Okay, so that would also be form a part of financial debt. Any derivative transactions, any counter indemnity obligations, and the amount of any liability in respect of any of the guarantee or indemnity for any of the items referred to in subclauses A to H of this clause. Okay, in case the corporate debtor has taken any guarantee for on behalf of some other entity for payment of a debt, and if he is unable to pay off that guarantee or indemnify the other person, that will also fall under the scope of financial debt.